What's up, world, YouTube land? It's Carpo here, and I'm just going to make this quick video, kind of an addendum to my last video. I got done making my video, I was uploading it, and then I turned on my subscriptions and saw a video from, I'm going to try to get this right, Kuntika. I can't remember exactly how he pronounced it. You know who you are. He had a video about awakenings, kind of moments of clarity. I think it was called Clarity and Hope. And he mentioned how he was driving past his ex-wife or ex-girlfriend's house, noticed her house, thought of his house, everything came together. Long story short, basically realizing the programming that had taken place in his mind, and how I believe you were mentioning that you can learn to break free, if that's what I was getting from that you can analyze, be aware of this, and these moments of clarity come. I've had several of these, and not to say, oh, I've had several of these, but I become unaware of it. It becomes second nature, and it wasn't always that way. It started with psychedelics when I was young, and I tried acid, and that Satori experience I had, that ego loss, was just, it wasn't as devastating as it is for a lot of people. For me, because I had this kind of free hippie type attitude already, so I kind of, not that I'm not going to play the, oh, I've known everything all my life kind of card or anything like that, because I haven't. I was just a regular kid. I went out and played, had fun. But, since I was about 10 or 11, I've been fascinated with, these various, ideas of going beyond the norm, I guess, and always kind of trying to be the one that's different, and I kind of prided myself on being different. I always have. Not in a proud factor like, look at me, but rather I can be myself and not have to be afraid of how I'm viewed. And I think with that came many experiences that I may not have had if I was close to them, by being, say, following the herd, being one of the masses. A term came to mind earlier, and I thought about it. Get with the program. And I thought, God, how many times have people told that to kids as they, get with the program? If you really analyze that, it's just saying, follow suit, get in line. And, but I'm not one of those ones who sits back and says, I guess I better stick to the subject first. These Satori experiences I've had, these awakenings, these moments have been small, but they all kind of add up to realize that we are programmed. But I'm not going to be one of those people who's obsessed with trying to deprogram myself, you see. And that's kind of where I'm coming from here. And this is a subject I've been thinking about for a long time. To what degree do we allow ourselves to be with the program, in other words? In the animal kingdom, if somebody's acting out of line, and they try to go their own way, they generally, don't get the support of the pack, the herd, the group. And this happens, maybe that's not the greatest example, because I can't think of any particular, examples off the top of my head, but let me go a different way on this. There's a certain degree of social conditioning which allows us to flourish and prosper and enjoy our lives. It's called cooperation. Cooperation only comes from programming, not programming in a negative way, but understanding the program, the system, how society goes together, and embracing that for what it is. You don't have to follow every single law and rule that you don't find just. You don't have to not be aware that you are being lied to. You can be aware of all these things, but still be part of the program, you see. I guess what I'm saying is I see a lot of folks that are trying to break away so hard. They're working so hard towards dismissing everything in modern life, as if, look at what we've worked towards, it was all garbage, the white picket fence has failed, everything's, all the values that our parents had, all the values that their parents had, we need to move that aside now and move past it and deprogram ourselves. So then it leads me to the question of, okay, so what's the new program? If we're abandoning an old program, aren't we just going to have a new one? Isn't it going to be just a new way of cooperation, a new way of following the norm? And it's just how I think it through, like to the point of what's next, you know? It's kind of like when people say we need to completely abolish government tomorrow. I say, well, what's next then, you know? It takes a degree of thinking things through, and I don't think there's enough critical thinking. I think that people want an idea to change things. They have an idea of the way the world should be, the way that they think the world should be, and they get frustrated because they look at those around them and say, you know, well, Bob's totally comfortable, you know, just playing the game and being in the system. That's not necessarily always the case. You know, I mean, people are casting a lot of insults at just the general population these days by saying everyone's lazy and everyone's ignorant and everyone's asleep. When the fact is, a lot of people have woken up and then realized, okay, I can only do so much by griping on the internet. I can only do so much by complaining about things and, you know, finding faults in everything before I have to realize that that's a reflection of myself. You know, if you find faults in everything around you, it's definitely a reflection of your inability to integrate into society properly. And sometimes it's due to a person's, you know, their difference. Sometimes they're outcasts, but generally it's a self-inflicted thing. People don't want to cooperate with those around them. They don't want to give any space to anybody, and sometimes that causes, you know, people do not want to be around them. Then they become lonely, then they become obsessive, and then they, you know, start obsessing over this program that has wronged them in so many ways. This is why you see people who are strong feminists or strong anti-feminists, people who lean towards one group or another, especially the people who really strongly lean towards one group. You can almost always trace that back to some psychological issue that had to do with growing up, you know, whether it was when they were a kid or when they were an adult. You know, if their wife left them and took the house, maybe they'll join the men going their own way group, you know, or if, you know, if they were raped when they were younger, they might join a feminist organization and be angry at men, you know. And I'm not finding faults in these groups. I'm saying that these are extreme expressions of our own issues in society. And I guess to kind of wrap it back to the original idea of, you know, the awakening, the awareness, those little moments of clarity only come when we let things go, when we stop resisting the flow. And it's something I just take for granted, like, oh, well, everybody has those little moments of clarity. Everybody has these moments of, you know, awareness where everything just makes sense. And I realize that it's not true. Not everybody does, but that doesn't mean that the general population is any less important than any one of us. You know, and it's really hard to because I feel like sometimes, you know, I generally bite my tongue when I hear, you know, people saying things that just aren't true, say on the internet, you know, making remarks to one another or bringing up ideas that are just totally false. And if they're blatantly, you know, nonsense, I won't even give it, you know, I won't even respond or make a comment, or, you know, I'll just move on to whatever. The times when I do, it's because I have concern towards a certain issue, you know, which is important to me, and that's why I'm addressing this. That's why I've been resistant to address programming, because I'm afraid that people are going to. I don't care. I'm not talking about my, you know, personal, you know, attack on me, but rather that people wouldn't understand where I'm coming from. It's hard to speak in favor of society and humanity in any way, shape, or form today without being, I guess, ridiculed for, you know, for looking at things in a positive light, for seeing the things that do work in our society. And, you know, I definitely see the problems. It gets really old when I get accused of being asleep or unaware merely because I've taken a different approach to how I see things. It doesn't anger me, it's just depressing, it's sad, because I see these people repeating the same things over and over and over. Either things they've been told, or if they've been lied to, then they found some new truth on the internet. I don't know how many times people have told me, well, the evidence is right here on YouTube. All you have to do is look up the video. You know, these aren't legitimate sources of information. People's speculation, and I think that we fall into that trap because we hear one person say something, another person repeats it, and it becomes this competition of, you know, who can be right. And I think once you let that go and just say, screw it, I'm going to speak my mind, I'm going to tell the truth the way I see it, and if people don't like it, then that's, you know, that's their right. And stop pressing against the way things are. In other words, instead of, you know, speak your mind, make a video, do whatever you're going to do, you know, talk to a person, write a book, whatever you do. But if a person has an opposing viewpoint, don't seek them out in order to find fault in that viewpoint. If you have a discussion and you find a viewpoint invalid, then you have a discussion and see how far you can go with it. It's the ones that, the trolls, the real life trolls, that are always seeking out conflict, and there's a lot of them, you know, not just on the internet. People are addicted to drama. So once you let that go, these little awakenings start to happen where you start to see things as they are because you're not so busy trying to defend yourself or putting on an image. In other words, if you're walking down the street and you're worried about how other people are viewing you, then that's all you're thinking about. You know, if you just do your thing, everything just comes to you, you know. So anyway, that's all I got on that. I just wanted to kind of get that out there because programming, I guess, in a nutshell, to close this up, programming is not, it's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it might be genetic. A lot of these traits may be genetic. So my conclusion would be, being programmed in today's society towards today's goals, or material-oriented society, is a fault. I mean, we seek material goods to a fault. It's definitely not a good way to be. Resisting everything society has to offer in completion is no better than just abandoning, I guess, abandoning your fellow man in a way, because resisting being human is not really what it's all about. It's the only things that we should be resisting are the things that make us harm others, the things that cause harm to others, the things that we do that bring pain or discomfort to people, plants, animals. But generally, the way a person is the way they are. And so we discuss the issues as best we can. Yada, 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 and I'm outie, so peace and all that stuff.